Howdy, YouTube folks. It's your friendly, tries to be friendly neighborhood girl, Ellen, bringing you another video. We just got this in the mail, and I'm going to pause you for a minute so you don't see my address. Check it on out, y'all. Just got my Farm Tech magazine in the mail, and I am pretty excited about that. There will be some looking through this. I thought it was going to come in May, but it ended up coming in sooner than I want. And also some other exciting news is, well, obviously I'm looking for a job, as y'all know. I think I mentioned it in the video, and I think I've got one lined up, but I haven't heard anything yet. But anyways, I had some family over, and one of my nieces learned how to use the four-wheeler. And so, who knows, I might have a future apprentice for the berry farm. But I'm glad that I got this book here, because this will help me order some stuff for the farm, because I think eventually we're going to expand to chickens, y'all. So, that'll be cool. Yeah. If you're familiar with this company, really good company. My grandfather used to get magazines from them that lived in this house, because he would occasionally order tools and things he needed for around the house through this magazine, and he liked looking at it because he was very much into hardware. Not that he was a farmer, just that he would get it for the sake of doing that. And sometimes when he was done with it, after me and him both looked it over, we would give it to a family friend who lived in a different area than we do. And anyways, and he would let the family friend have it, because the family friend was a farmer, did maple sugaring and had a logging operation. But anyways, so yeah, and I finally got it in the mail. Had to kind of chuckle because currently I still go by my natural birth name, and they spelt it wrong. They misspelt by one letter, so I thought that was hilarious. But anyways, so yeah, I'll be excited to be looking through this, and maybe I might be able to find the metal poles that I need for the rest of the metal poles I need for my berry plants. Obviously, I'm also going to look to see if I find any of those cinchers I was describing to y'all about. As a matter of fact, we might be able to look in this briefly, because I want to show y'all what I'm talking about for those of you who don't know, who haven't really done any farming and say you want to get into it. Because these sometimes have them in it. I mean, they could be different than in here than what I'm thinking, but I believe they should have these and hear what I'm talking about, but for those of you who are familiar with farming with wires and poles, will know probably already know what I'm talking about, but for those of you who don't, we used them at the winery I worked at, like I said, and that's what I want to set up mine with, because it'll be so much easier to do it that way than trying to pull the wires tight or taut, however you want to say it, by hand, which is a lot of work. And that's what we did in the beginning when I worked at that winery, but then we swapped over to those ratcheting cinchers. Very handy tools. So you can get anything from brooder bins, which I probably may just get already pre-made ones when I do. Because if I do get into chickens, I'm going to make a polytunnel type thing. Not super big, but I think I might just build my own interior, because I want to make it so I can push the chickens back and fold up the brooder nests when I need to clean it, so it'll be easier to clean, and make it so the front door folds open on a latch system but still has a regular door, so it'll be easier to clean with just a tractor. And then also make it towable, so that way I can bring it just about anywhere. But I always thought these were kind of cool, these Byrdex Scare Eyes. I've seen farmers use them before, and they do sometimes work. And then, of course, they had an owl in there, predatorial owl. I've seen that done before, but let's see if I can find these. Yep. They're in here somewhere. Well, I'm going to pause you guys a minute and see if I can find those. Just because I'm curious if they have them in here. Also, while I'm thinking of it, this is kind of the style of what I was thinking to build for my hen house as far as the cage. And as you can see, you can buy these cages in here. I mean, that's a cool one too, but I'd rather it a round polytunnel. Put plastic over it. It's easier to put the plastic on a round one if you're building it to that scale. I don't know if it'll necessarily be that big, but, you know, it might. Just so I have enough space to, as you know, be able to move them and clean it out easier with the big Ford. If I do get into chickens. Definitely berry farm, but I don't know if I'll be getting into chickens anytime soon. Chickens are actually one of the most relatively easy to care for animals on a farm, believe it or not, YouTube folks, for those of you who didn't know. Hogs can be fairly easy to take care of too, in my opinion, versus like cattle and stuff, because cattle and horses and stuff like that, the bigger animals tend to get a little more expensive. Goats can be pretty expensive though too, as I'm saying that. And I could not find those in here, but I will find you a picture of what I'm talking about and probably do a short for those of you who aren't familiar and want to get into farming. It's just an easier method of tying wires, especially if you're looking to get into like vineyard work or berry plants, because I highly recommend having marked rows for your berry plants if you're doing the bush style, like black and blueberry and raz, as I am doing. Yeah, I may expand to strawberries someday, but I'm not 100% sure because they're more of a ground plant, and I just find there's a lot more work involved in them, and I think I'll have my hands full enough with what I'm doing. So I probably won't get into those because I'm going to start out obviously with blueberries, blackberries, blueberries, and raspberries because they're the bush plants, and like I said, I'm going to try to get my blackberries to or black raspberries to grow up words, because I believe there is a way you can train them, and like I said, I'll study more up on that. But again, if any of y'all know how to go about that, but I would assume the principle is the same as if you were pruning grapevines to go upwards. You just get them to go in a tree form and only leave so many. So yeah. Anyways, I am very happy, YouTube folks, that this finally came in. So cool. I highly recommend getting a free magazine subscription to a place like this. If you're going to, not that I'm sponsored by Farm Tech at all, if you're going to get into farming, because these are really handy tools for a way to order things that you may not be able to find at your local Tractor Supply or a place like that, Guy's Farm and Yard, whatever. They may not have that in stock, and this is a better way of going about finding that. So I am going to continue really in-depthly looking into this, because I want to see what they have for metal poles in here and wire possibly, because that's something. And also, before I close out the video, it's a thing, I'm thinking about it. I haven't 100% definite on it, but I may be looking into I want to make it my fencing vehicle. It's an old mail Jeep from like 1982, and I want to outrig it if I were to get it and find a way to get it and fix it up, get it running, would be my goal, to outrig it with all my fencing materials, the tools, the spool of wire, or 2 spools of wire, how many ever I keep on there for spares, my posts up on the top. I'd build a rack so I could strap the post to them to it at the top and keep them up there, but in the very back keep all my fencing tools in there. And I want to make that my fencing rig. If I did end up getting it, I was able to figure out what the guy's bottom line would be. And that's also why if I get this job at North Hero, saving up funds will be able to help me fund the equipment and the materials, because that's what I want to do, is get the big Ford fixed up. Obviously, I have money saved aside for my van. That's not on the back burner, y'all. That will be done this summer. But being able to get my other equipment and eventually getting that stuff gone through, I may take a picture of the Jeep I was interested in and send you a short of it. It's an old U.S. mail Jeep. They're kind of rare, but that doesn't necessarily mean they equate to any value. It's just not many of them survived, because from what I understand, the government, and for those of you who know more could correct me if I'm wrong, but from what I understand, the government took most of them back after they stopped using them and discarded of them for liability reasons. But select few people who were hometown mail deliverers somehow were able to buy off of the U.S. government and work out a deal and get it registered, some of those older Jeeps, so they could have a vehicle to drive around. But I'm almost surmising that a lot of them didn't stay as driving vehicles for long, and they ended up in people's backyards, because that's most of the time what the case is when you see these for sale, is they're in someone's wood line abandoned for God knows how long. And it's up to you to figure out how to get it out there after you buy it or take it or whatever off them. Again, though, just be careful. For any of you, if you want one of those, just be careful you don't overpay on one of those, because they're not, just because they're rare doesn't mean they're really worth anything. It's just not a lot of them are left in existence. They probably made over millions of those back in the day by the AMC Corporation. And I say mail Jeep, but I think if it is truly from the 80s like they claim it is, it's probably an AMC, so it's not really a Jeep. It's the partner of Jeep that was making those special issue for the government for the U.S. mail. But they're very straightforward to weld and repair. And that's why I would be interested in it for that, because I think I could straightforward do all the body work and make it decent, and it would never go on the road again, so I don't have to worry about titling it and all that stuff. It would just be a farm vehicle. So I would restore it, obviously, fully cosmetically and mechanically, but it wouldn't be like a concourse restoration. And of course I would clean up the chassis and go through that and paint it, but like I said, I don't know if it would be a full-on concourse, but enough to where it was usable still. And anyways, so that's a thought. I'm also looking at an 8N. That will be the second for the farm. Eventually, if I save up enough money for the farm and I could afford to buy some more land somewhere, because I'm considering that in the near future, but that would be years and years down the road. To expand it, I would probably expand to 2 more tractors, because I wouldn't mind owning a 9N and a 2N. 2N for the trailer and a 9N for a seeding cultivator. So if I do get into vegetables, which might be a future goal, but that'll be ways down the line, because I've been looking at different. And I think for the second tractor I would get for now would be an 8N for rototiller, because that seems to be the cheapest one on Marketplace. And it says in the ad that it runs, but might need a new starter switch, but that's nor here or there. If you're familiar with those, they're pretty straightforward to change out if you know how to do it. You basically take the top plate off of the center gearbox, and it's under there with like 2 bolts. You unbolt it, you put the new one in, you put your new gasket that goes on that top plate, and you set everything back down. Maybe a little RTV just for extra insurance, and then that's all said and done. But I'm assuming the guy has had it jumped over by the solenoid with a screwdriver. For those of you who know, you already know this, but for those of you who don't, you can do that if you jump the 2 positive and negative terminals. But anyways, so yeah, I think that would be my next grab. It would be that, if I had the funds and I could figure out a way to get it delivered, because the guy said he's selling it for his son, so you know how that goes. But I'm hoping that we could work a deal out and I could get it delivered and see what his son's best price would be for it, because it hasn't sold yet, thankfully. And anyways, so that'll be a cool addition to the farm. That one will have a rototiller on it. That way I can keep the big Ford just for a loader tractor more than anything. And maybe a drawbar for that. But then I won't have to get 3-point arms, because I don't know. Because if I end up in the future, like I said, getting a 9N for, say, like the seeding cultivator, then that most likely will already have the 3-point arms on it, hopefully, and I won't need to ever get any for the big Ford, because I was going to get a set for them, but I may not if I do that route. So if anything, just a drawbar for the big Ford. But if some day down the line, say 10, 20 years later, I have a 2N Ford and it has a drawbar on it, or I can take the drawbar off the big Ford and put it on there, I'll do that and just leave the big Ford as the loader. That way I put less hours on the big Ford that belong to my uncle, and have the other ones for the main work. Because really, anything at all the big loader will be for is maybe like grabbing the bushes after they're no longer fruitable and need to be pulled from the ground and thrown into the compost pile, or pulling out poles and driving new poles in as needed. Stuff like that. Cleaning out the chicken coop if I ever get that route. Maybe taking fertilizer if I end up having a vegetable garden someday, if I have more land down the road. But yeah, I'm also looking around for, if anybody in Vermont, you can private message me on Instagram, knows where I can find a 1970s, I did a short on it, orange Gilson rear engine rider parts tractor, but it has to be the one with the recoil start on it, because mine's not an electric start, but it has the mower deck and is mostly complete. And even more of a bonus, has the grass bagger like in the brochure, because I'm thinking that's what I'm going to do with my uncle's old one, is I'm going to restore that and use that as the mower between the rows. But having the factory mount, rear mount grass bagger that mounts to the actual machine would be nice, because I think that'll be small enough, given if you saw the picture of what it looked like new in the brochures when they were making those new back in the day, how narrow that is. I think that would fit perfectly between my rows. And for the first beginning, I'll probably have to use push mowers, obviously, but once I can get that thing fixed up, then I can just go down there and ride it. It'll be so much easier, and it'll be done way quicker than push mowing it. Not that push mowing's that bad to me, it's just, and it is good exercise for me, but I just feel like that'll be more work. And if I can eliminate a step, and I think once I make them, depending on how spaced the rows are, I don't know if I'll have room for a finish mower on the back of a big tractor, so having a small thing like that will be just good enough for my needs. Anyways, YouTube folks, I think that's going to do it for this video. So look for updates on the berry farm. And, yeah. I was also looking through my phone, but I don't know if I'm going to post it or not. But I found a video that I thought was pretty cute of, I have a nephew who is actually a chow dog. And out of respect for his family, I don't know if I'll post it, but he's the most adorable dog ever. And his brother Rudy, who is a pug, stayed at their other grandparents, but because he needs a little more care because he's older. But anyways, the youngest puppy dog, he stayed here with us and he slept with me all the night. But I found a video of him snoring, which I thought was pretty cute. And also a picture I took of him. He was so cozy on the bed, because he slept with me all of that time because I was the one taking him out mostly. Only one little accident towards the end. It was like the day before the final day. We woke up in the morning, but it happens, you know. He's just a dog, a little puppy dog. He didn't know any better. And I'm surprised I didn't hear him and wake up. But anyways, it was straightened and cleaned up. But yeah. So this'll be interesting. I can't wait to get this done here. I am so excited. And I'm so glad this came in. I did not get my Steiner's catalog, which is weird. But I will call them at some point because I was going to get a drawbar for the big tractor so I can do drawbar things until I have another piece of equipment that can replace it, which would be a 2N, because I saw a 2N locally in my area or in my state for sale. And also saw a 9N. So look for future updates, maybe 10, 20 years down the road with me having two of those. Or one of those each, you know, a 2N and a 9 added to the farm. But that'll be years down the road. If anything, it would be the 2N next because of the trailer purposes, and that's all that tractor would ever do. Plus, I do have a slight fondness for those older N-Series Fords because I feel they're back when Ford put a little more quality into their stuff. But again, unintentionally. You know my opinion about Ford is not the highest opinion, even though I own a Ford tractor. But anyways, okay, I think this has been enough, YouTube folks. As always, keep your heads up, stay strong, all that kind of jazz. Have an excellent time, whatever it is, wherever you are. And again, look for updates on the farm. And as always, if you wouldn't mind liking, commenting, and subscribing in general. You don't have to like my video, but I would appreciate that you did. And to comment below. And also, if you wouldn't mind subscribing, but you don't have to, and hit that notification bell so you can see more of what I got going on here. Full notification, as you know, is really appreciated. Half notification, we are fine with that too. And no notification. It's an obligation-free zone. As you know, I just like to say it again every once in a while for the newcomers. But please, feel free to. Feel free to comment with constructive criticism within, you know, what is deemed constructive criticism, or any comments you have about my videos. Greatly appreciated, and I will see you in the next one. As always, YouTube folks, sunshine, unicorns, and rainbows. Oh, I gotta get that. There we go. And the hand wave. I will see you later.